Hi everyone and welcome. It is Wednesday, it's 4:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's time for the ViaMonstra Academy's office hours. This time live from the MMS conference here in Minneapolis. And with me as usual, I have Mr. Andrew. Are you ready to roll?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do this. All right, welcome back everyone, and hi Andrew, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad that we're still able to get this in while we're up here and do a special presentation of office hours this week.
Exactly. As you can see, our backdrop is a little bit different than usual. We have to leave the conference area because it was a little bit too noisy to send anything away from. And when you have 700 geeks in basically one big area and doing a live broadcast at the same time, that is kind of asking for trouble, I think. But here we are. And anything you'd like to share from the conference, Andrew? Any highlights?
Yeah, a lot of general stuff. I think I'm going to make some notes, and I would love for us to be able to debrief the conference a little bit here on one of our future office hours sooner rather than later. But a great content all over the place. I learned a lot about the history behind a lot of the history behind autopilot is particularly one of the things that's stuck out to me. But as usual, this conference is just absolutely packed full of so much content this week. So many, so many good friends, old and new. I've gotten the opportunity to meet several people this week. Hopefully, help some people out. I'm fortunate enough again this year, as you are as well, wearing your speaker jacket. Fortunate enough to be able to hopefully help people on their journey in this little part of our industry. So that's kind of what's been on my mind this week. Anything in
Awesome.
particular that's stuck out to you?
Now, I just wanted to share just a quick for people who haven't heard about this before or know what the conference is about. Uh, this is the conference that we are talking about. It runs every year now in the May timeframe in Minneapolis, but they also have sort of breakout conferences, typically in the fall. And I know there is one coming up in Miami later this one. So if you didn't have a chance to join us here in Minneapolis now this week, there is still an opportunity to do this later this year. And that one is October 29 through November 1st. So a little bit shorter, but still awesome content. So all about that. No, otherwise, it's a good representation of people from Microsoft here, about 30 some people from the product groups. We are 70 plus speakers. I saw the notes from Monday where there was a ratio from basically 1 to 8 in terms of speakers versus attendees, and that's a pretty significant number because it allows attendees to talk to speakers in much greater extent, and that's pretty much what this conference is about. So that was that, and we'll come back to this one and see if we can do a recap of our highlights as soon as we have gathered our thoughts and finished up our presentations for the week. It's been a long week.
Yeah, I actually have one to give in about 25 minutes here. So
Yeah, you'll be excused. I'll consider that an okay reason. It's considered a good thing if the instructor actually show up for the presentation.
that's important. Trying to get those smiley face feedback, so I need to be there for that.
That is true. But I did spend some time early this week summarizing what's been going on outside of this conference, and I figured we can share some of that. And when you, good sir, have to head out, you simply do that with a smile and hi and bye and all that good stuff. But the first thing that stood out to me the last 2 days was that Microsoft indeed, and this was, I guess, last week here, but they did announce their new roadmap update that they had. And that was not what I wanted to show. I did my here. Two things they announced officially now. Windows 10 22H2 is indeed the final version of Windows 10, and that means you have about 2 years to get upgraded to Windows 11. And at the same time, Microsoft also announced that there will be LTSC versions of Windows 11. I believe they will be supported 5 years like the other ones have been for Windows 10, but I didn't see that detail here. Don't yell at me too much, but I think it was a 5-year support cadence for that release, whereas the normal Windows 11 versions are still up on 36 months, like always, and Windows and 24 months for professional, of course. But you should not be using that one. You should be on enterprise or education if chance. So that was one thing that stood out to me. Then Panu tweeted about a Excel spreadsheet that was basically shared now at the conference. I haven't seen it before, so I was like quite excited about, but it's just a giant Excel spreadsheet that holds all the 12,000 settings you can configure in the Intune settings catalog. So if you go to this page on GitHub, this is where you can download that Excel spreadsheet and get all the good content. So I figured we could do that. I haven't done it yet, so how hard can it be? Exciting times.
Maybe we could spend some time going through every one of them.
Of course, that was my plan to dive through all these settings, but here they are, a nice searchable Excel spreadsheet. I figured that could be useful at least.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? Well, Peter van der Woede, that we have been showcasing quite many times here on the office hours. He has not been still, I was about to say, but he's been busy and created a quite shiny guide on how to get started with the new Windows Labs solution that we covered briefly last week. And Andrew here did a short introduction to where the configurations are, etc. But if you're looking for something step by step, this is a good starting point. And of course, apply the May updates when they become available to work around some of the initial issues with the MSI packages for the previous version of this. But this is a great post covering that one. And as usual, we will share these posts up on the YouTube channel as well as on the Academy site as well. How are you doing on time, good sir?
Well, it's about 4:40, so I think I should probably head downstairs.
All right then. Good luck with your session, and I'll see you later.
Thank you so much, and I will see the rest of you next week.
Oh, sounds good. All right. I'll disconnect that camera. Should be back with just me for now, so you have to deal with me for the next 50 minutes here. Let me see. What else? Oh yeah, Niall Brady put together a nice blog post on troubleshooting certificates that I wanted to highlight. So that would be this one here. Highly recommended if you are dealing with that kind of stuff through Autopilot and are having certificate issues from SCEP or MDT or something similar. This was a good troubleshooting tutorial that I stumbled across. Then, of course, our friends at PatchMyPC who are here at the conference, they made some shiny announcements. this Monday morning on stuff they have been working on. And one of these things was advanced insights for basically security updates, because that's what they are known for in the industry. The initial release, this is just an early program here they announced, is for ConfigMgr, and David James, who is their VP of engineering, he announced that they are also working on an Intune version of this. So I'm looking very much forward to play around with that stuff later. Another tweet that caught my interest this last week was the blue team news. That is, of course, the opposite of the red team, but they announced a tool that allow you to scavenge through your content manager library for, as they put it, interesting files. So basically, it's a PowerShell module. I have the link right here. But it will allow you to search through that library to try to find files that may contain passwords and other things that you may not want to have available like that in a content library, because it is a security risk, and a blue team is all about preventing that, or making sure that you as admins can provide better security in your environment. Another thing to note is that, of course, ConfigMgr 21.11 is going out of support now in June. So for those of you still on that platform, you should be upgrading to a newer version of ConfigMgr. And speaking of the latest version of ConfigMgr, I'll also made a blog post and a note about the new 23.03 release is now available as baseline. And what that means in ConfigMgr lingo is that you are now able to run fresh installs from this media, so you don't have to install an older than upgrade like you had before for this release. So for those of you spinning up lab environment, now is a good time to update that media and use the latest version of ConfigMgr. Then one of the support engineers, Microsoft support engineers in the UK, Meyer, who I highly recommend to follow on Twitter, by the way, did highlight that they published FAQ for the new universal updates. And there were some really good findings in that FAQ that pretty much every ConfigMgr admin should read. Long story short, you will try to be on ConfigMgr 22.03 or above for this, because older versions will have some challenges with these updates. And by all means, that platform itself is almost a year old by now, or it is a year old by now. So try to get away from 21.11, because that version, to get these to work at all, you have to enable Delta downloads, and that's something you shouldn't do in general. And newer versions, you don't have to do that. So again, I recommend to upgrade your ConfigMgr environments, but otherwise read through this post, because there was a lot of good information in it. So I like that one. All right, that's what I have on the update side. Let's see what questions are coming in here. I'm so spoiled having Andrew helping me, keeping an eye on questions here, but I will do my best to multitask. Let's see. Was a question coming in from YouTube. Do you have any recommendations, article scripts to use ConfigMgr baselines to monitor PC's BitLocker and remediate? Nothing that stands out. There was a session here at the conference. It was David Brook and Steve Beaumont. They're both from Power On. They did a presentation around BitLocker management as proactive remediation scripts in Intune. And that is pretty much very, very similar to scripts that we use in ConfigMgr for baselines. So that would probably be a good starting point. Let's see if I can hunt down the link to those scripts, because they did say they would share them after the conference publicly. So hopefully I can find them there. At least I know how to reach out and find those people. So if I wouldn't be able to, I will update that for our next office hours. But that's what I would start, because I haven't seen any others, unfortunately. Then there was a follow-up question, this one regarding Intune. What are the permissions needed to allow a wipe in Intune? I allow the permissions or the wipe permissions under remote action. It doesn't seem to be working. I don't know about that one specifically. I haven't done an RBAC role that is only allowed to do a remote wipe. That would be something I have to look into and take as a homework for next week. I don't have the answer on the top of my head, unless someone that is listening to this live stream happen to know. Please ping in the chat here, and I'll be happy to share it. But I'm making a note here: permissions needed for wipe only, or basically limited permissions to do just a wipe/reset of a device through the Intune console. And just to give you a little bit of an idea what's being mentioned here, it is indeed on your Windows devices inside of Intune. These guys here. If I would pick a device, there are a few actions up here on the bar. And the question was, all right, how can we have very restricted permissions to just initiate these actions? But again, I will have to look into that. Then there was a follow-up. There was a third question coming in from YouTube, and there was a hello from Matt. Hi, Matt. That was nice. And the question was regarding enablement packages. It was more a comment, I think. No, let's see. There were two questions that just happened to come in the chat in two locations. Question was, what's the new ConfigMgr client setting for feature update? Can you please talk about this in detail? I use enablement packages to get Windows 10 to the latest version so far. That was the new Windows 11 updates that follows that unified update thing that update platform I mentioned earlier. That client setting should only be needed for ConfigMgr 21.11. In terms of the normal feature updates, they will be available. Let's see if I have a config manager running. Here we go. You will see the enablement packages in here, assuming that you have updated or in that classification. So that will be the upgrade classification. So if you, if I go back to the site server real quick, if you are using ConfigMgr to manage updates, you want to enable this upgrades classification. And then when you sync, assuming you have selected the right products, it will also put in those updates here, because you will find that in a week when this one finished to load, you can search for enablement packages. So they will have to be, of course, downloaded and deployed, but you will find those updates here that you can use for this. So I hope that answered the question somewhat. Otherwise, I have to see if I can do a clarification for next week. All right. There was a comment back from Jamal on YouTube. I think it was regarding the permissions. Thing. Basically, a comment saying the Intune account must be a member on premises ConfigMgr admin. Now that must have been something else, because there are several cases where you do not have ConfigMgr and do Intune anyway. So I'm not sure what that comment was about. I'll leave that for now, and if there was any follow-up on that, please reply in the chat, and I'll see if I can make some better use of it. Let's see. A question from Matt coming in. What are the pros and cons for ConfigMgr 2303, and why is this universal update feature needed? It's something Microsoft took a decision to change how they deliver update, primarily now for Windows 11. The April update was the first one that came out with this new way of dealing updates. It does add an additional payload to your distribution point. It's about 10 gigs that will be downloaded to them. But the idea is that it will go faster to update your clients, and there will be less downloaded from the server to the clients when using this technology. So it's just a new way to deal with updates. It has been in the making or worked for quite some time. Highly recommend to read up on that article that I shared the link to earlier, and that will be put up on the Academy as well as up on the YouTube channel here. Let's see what else. What is the best way to identify what devices that are connected to the PC, like monitor, printer, headset, etc.? Any PowerShell script or any inventory data from ConfigMgr? There are definitely PnP ID classes that you can query through PowerShell or WMI that will enumerate basically what you see in Device Manager. I've seen that. I haven't seen a specific table in ConfigMgr for those devices, but there might be one in it already. Let me see if I can find something quickly here. Some of these things are indeed available in the classes. For example, there is a desktop monitor. Let's see. I will head over to my client settings. I'm just going to check default for now. Doesn't really matter, but that's why I have my here, set classes. There will be a monitor class, this one here, where you can select what information about monitors you want to inventory. And if there is not available here, you can run a PowerShell script or something that gathers that information, saves it out into a registry key or something that you do additional inventory on, because you can fairly easily extend what's in these classes. Then this is something we cover in great details in our trainings, but you will find a lot of information out there on how to extend hardware inventory. It's been a feature available for a very long time in ConfigMgr. So hopefully that can help a little bit there. All right. Miguel on YouTube is asking, hey, I assisted or attended a Microsoft event 2 months ago. Do you know anything about the Intune caching server? It's not related to ConfigMgr at all. So the standalone caching servers that have been in private preview for a good 2.5 years, the company I work with, 2 Point Software, we have been part of that private preview all this time, but it's not there have not yet been an announcement on when these standalone cache servers are going to be released. So I simply don't have any information I can share on that. For now, you're stuck with having to use a ConfigMgr DP as a connected cache if you want to cache into content locally that is like a controlled cache where you have all the bytes that are being used in your environment. If you don't want to do that, your only other option is to optimize delivery optimization as much as you can on your clients and have them be the cache sources for your deployments. Talked about that many times here on the Academy, but there are some basic things you can do for Intune clients. We did put out those recommendations earlier. We just redid our website here, but if you go to our blog and search for delivery, this is where you will find, let's see, here, DO recommendations for Intune. And these are rate starting settings, which if you apply them, you will find that you will have a much better efficiency on caching on clients for Intune content or any content that is used in delivery optimization. That it's not just Intune applications. It's updates for Windows applications, it's or store updates or store applications. There's a lot of data that is shared through this protocol, this technology. So I hope that answered that question. Let's see. Another question in from YouTube here. One of the requirements for 2303 is to have .NET 4 on every client. I'd like to say that requirement has been a while, but maybe it hasn't. But .NET 4 is very easy to deploy, and in general, you should have it out there anyway, because there are so many other normal applications that requires recent versions of .NET. It's typically you either have most common version to be out there right now is 4.8. So you can simply deploy that and make sure it's available everywhere. If you have only Windows 10 and Windows 11 clients, they are usually upgraded to the latest version as you do your normal patching. So you usually don't have to worry too much, but there are standalone installers that you can run. For example, if you have older servers that you need to have the client on, you can download and push out that package through ConfigMgr. In my lab environment, I didn't have to deploy anything extra at all for 2303. All my clients and servers already had those components, but yeah, worst case, you have to deploy it. Let's see what else. Was a question regarding enablement packages being updated in using ConfigMgr, and they're showing the wrong version after the upgrade, how to enforce showing the right build number. So I guess it's simply as you did an enable package, we went to the client. This is not a client, so let me go to one of my clients. I'm assuming the question is that the client doesn't show the right number here after an enablement update. I have not seen that. Supposed to update that version number if the enablement update is successful. I would assume that if it doesn't, it didn't quite go through, or that was a prerequisite missing on the device, either the servicing stack or one of the later updates that are required for enablement packages. The Windows Update log files should give you additional insights for what's going on. And of course, you have to use the get Windows Update command or PowerShell command to parse that log file into something readable. But otherwise, it will have to be a troubleshooting on the device to see why or why not it didn't apply that update and bump up the version. Because if it does go through, it should show you the right version here on the if you're done an enablement package. CBS log file might be useful as well. It's in the Windows folder or Windows debug for Windows logs folder, one of the two. So maybe that. Any other questions? We're still available for another 27 minutes. Also, a follow-up comment from YouTube here. Basically, that scenario was where you did updates of a client, and after the clients had been updated, they wouldn't immediately show up with the new version number here in your in your collections and whatnot. So if I would go to a collection having that machine I showed you before that had been upgraded, should be this one here. Go to one of my collections that should have my Chicago clients. Thought I had one. Yeah, so this was the client I showed you earlier. And if you show operating system information here, you have the system, the name, and then you have the build. If this one is not updated like it is here, you can force discovery of that device because that information is actually part of discovery. And then, of course, for the other stuff, you have to force a hardware inventory. So if you're missing information about the device here, it could be simply be that discovery haven't run, or that for other information that hardware inventory has not been run. It's a bit odd that hardware inventory has so much software in it, but that's simply how ConfigMgr works. All right. Question coming in on YouTube: what is the preferred way to manage desktop shortcuts of some websites? I don't do that much. When needed, I've been running PowerShell scripts to create shortcuts, but there are policies available that can create shortcuts as well, preferences that will do it. So maybe use that if it's an Active Directory environment still. That would be a good way. Go back to my client again and see. It's been a while since I did any group policies at all. I have to admit, it's not my everyday thing. On the user side, let's see. Now I have to go to an AD. Let me go to one of my controllers here. Won't show up in the local one. I did not mean to do that. Try again. Come on. Right, here we go. Almost there. Open up the group policy management console. It will start in a week. Show what my lab is doing at the moment, but it's a little bit sluggish. And if I go to any of my group policy objects, just create a new one. Demo, good as any. And edit that policy. And here are the preferences. And down here, there are options to create shortcuts. So it's been around for a long time. You can even see the old XP type interface for the creating them, but they still work. So that's one option to deal with it. Otherwise, you do scripts as well if you want to. So hopefully that could be helpful. Let's see. There is a question coming in on LinkedIn. Hi, do you have a good script for clearing down the CM cache? I'm looking for CI that I can run on clients. I don't have a ready-made CI, but I have written a good chunk of scripts in the past that will clear out the cache or certain elements of the cache. So let's see where I have those. Let's check on this one here. Here is one that is getting cache elements at least. And when you look through the cache and look for things, you can search for certain packages, etc., and then remove content from them with a different command. I think one of my templates have a script from Gary who did this. Let me see if I have it on this server or the other. Not this one. I went through some of this in a demo earlier today, so I should remember. But this is one of Gary's modules. This one is deleting selected content out of the CM cache. So if you look for that script, should have it in somewhere. That folder. Maybe in this folder. But I copied the name. Apparently I did not. Here we go. If I go to that folder, was this one here. This was an example. To remove cache content, specifically as it looks like. And the other example was how to, for example, remove software update packages. So it's looking through all packages and looking for certain types of it. Go ahead and deletes them, or certain packages or content IDs. So would recommend to go to this link here. We've been showcasing those sequences many times in the ViaMonstra office hours, but they are available for download here, including the scripts that those sequences are using. So maybe that is some examples on how to clear content from the CM cache. Let's see, what else? There's a question coming in on YouTube. Any recommendations on getting patching servers and bringing compliance to 90% or up? That's, I think, a longer discussion than we'll have time for during office hours. It's quite a work to set up a patching solutions in ConfigMgr and get a high compliance rate. There are so many factors that go into this, but in general, what I see most organizations are doing, they are keeping track on, let me see what I have here. They are ensuring that all servers are accounted for. So even if you have servers that you don't patch through ConfigMgr or using ConfigMgr, they should still be accounted for in collections, so that you can constantly track them and review those manually or review them through other means. So making sure they're patched through other means. But setting up a solution for service patching, that takes a little while. There are some good guidance out there on the Microsoft documentation site. There is a good video up on the PatchMyPC YouTube channel. I've seen that one, goes through this a little bit, but otherwise this more like also like a full training on how to get software updates configured and report with the compliance and all that stuff. So it's not something I can just answer in a few minutes, I'm afraid. All right. Miguel is asking, Andrew Johnson posted on the website about new changes in the hydration kit. Do you have an ETA when new changes will be posted? some of them have already been posted. So if you go to our GitHub repository for hydration kits, which will be this one here, Hydration Kit 2022 was the one that was updated recently. I see there is one pending pull request, I think. That was from George, that one earlier, so that one I can go ahead and approve. But there were some code changes recently. On this one specifically. Yeah, in the beginning of, let's see, that was earlier, April 19. That's when I approved those changes from Andrew that he blogged about. So they should all be in there by now. If anything is missing, please let me know and I follow up with Andrew. But these are there. All right. Ian is asking, have you seen any issues with Windows Store apps breaking after upgrading to Windows 11 through a sequence? I have not. But I mean, I have seen store apps becoming broken in general. See if there are any good information related to that. Well, nothing immediately that I found that was related to that specific scenario. But the good news is I have 30 some people here at the conference from Microsoft, so I will head over and ask. They even brought some developers, so if you can bear with me until next Wednesday, I will see if I can find something out. So Ryan, store apps not happy. All right, 2 homework items. I can live with that. Follows follow-up comment. Thank you for that. Have store apps blocked. If that's a factor, that might very well play in, but I will add a note about that. Thank you for the update. Any other questions? I hope I didn't miss anyone. I certainly did not mean to. I think I answered all. Anything else out there? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope to see you again next week. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.